Are you ready to live more authentically and explore who you truly are? Would you love to know how to get there? Hi, I am Jamie Graham Duprey, teacher, author, coach, and host of The Second Half. Throughout the show, we will consider how we can be people who show up honestly, speaking in truth and love, and vulnerably, sharing and reflecting on life experiences. You will be encouraged to make connections in your life that will dare you to explore powerful growth, personally, vocationally, and spiritually. Are you ready to consider how to develop and nurture a growth mindset, take ownership of your life, and create action steps that lead you to being bold, brave, and healthy? The second half starts now. Good morning. My name is Jamie Graham Duprey. Thank you for joining me here on Transformation Talk Radio. You can find me every second and fourth Wednesday of the month at 9 o'clock Mountain Time, or find past episodes wherever you prefer to find your podcasts and stream those. Today, I have a colleague, mentor, and friend with me, Nathan Swenson-Reinhold, Pastor Nathan, and he and I are going to discuss the very broad topic of leadership. So Nathan, can you say hi to these lucky listeners and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Nathan Swenson-Reinhold, and I'm a lot of things. I'm at present, I am an ordained pastor in a particular Christian denomination, but my full-time work is as a coach and consultant and professional fundraiser. And so I'm taking the leadership lessons of the last 20 years of holding the cat literally by the tail and utilizing those insights to help others in their leadership journeys. So that kind of brings you up quickly to speed on my leadership piece. I'm married to Aaron for 27 years. We have 3 kids, 24-year-old who's adulting well on his own in Knoxville,
Woohoo!
Tennessee. Yeah, which is fantastic. And middle son, Ephraim, who is a junior at Texas A&M, and our daughter Emma is still at home with us. She's a sophomore in high school, and we just survived her second Texas marching band season. So they
Woo!
finished sixth in the state. We're proud of her, proud of them.
Great job,
Yeah,
Emma. Yeah, and what a celebration that Sam is off and
yeah,
running on his own. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Nathan and I get to be on a lot of Zoom calls together. Every once in a while, we get to meet in person. But in my journey for the last 7 years, since I switched from teaching to coaching and entering into that space and writing, I have learned a lot from Nathan. We keep finding ourselves in spaces together, which is just really fun. And in the last episode, my spouse, Jeremy, and I used the reference iron sharpening iron and trying to find people that will do that with and for you. And Nathan, you're certainly a person that fulfills that in my life as well. So I'm
Mm,
thankful for that.
what an honor. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah. Little fun fact about Nathan, when I first met him, he was teaching a mentor coaching class for me. And I very quickly realized I needed to be taking notes because he would use, he would inevitably use new words I had never heard before. And I was so intrigued and excited. And so now anytime I'm introducing him to a cohort that we're working with or that he's, teaching or whatever, I always like to give that disclaimer. So that's a real fun thing that I appreciate your your vocabulary,
Oh no.
vernacular, Nathan. It's a lot of pressure I just put on you.
Yeah, you put a lot of pressure on me. I should have done better on my SATs than I did, if that's really true. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a great segue. So, on this, to be true to the theme of this show, I like to talk about formative experiences, maybe stories that we can think about that left an impression on us, and then how now in our lives we either use those lessons and how we're growing in new ways, whether it's spiritually, whether it's physically, mentally, whatever it is, that the opportunity for growth
Mm,
is just so vast.
mhm.
So you kind of just chuckled and mentioned your SATs, but leadership is such a huge topic. We could have a whole series on this. But
Mhm.
when you look back, Nathan, in the, to past experiences, whether it was when you were really young or, maybe at early jobs, whatever, what comes to mind for you as a story that was really impactful for you as a
I've got
leader?
Yeah, I've got two that I kind of hold in juxtaposition. The first is a conversation at about the age of 12 with my maternal grandfather who was in a pastorate at the time. And I remember him saying, Nathan, why don't you consider being a pastor someday? And I thought that was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. The idea of standing up and saying something intelligible to people week in and week out was just anathema to me. And the idea of being the spotlight, center of attention, terrified me. I can still feel viscerally the knots in my gut in that conversation. And so I think I went into my teen years not really seeing myself as a leader. I wasn't an alpha kid. I wasn't a beta kid. I was a gamma kid. I kind of free floated in and out of the groups I wanted to participate in and had friends everywhere. And the first inkling that I had that others saw me differently than I saw me was when I was nominated, one of two guys nominated to go to Boise State
Yep.
in Arizona. Um, and so, you get nominated if your teacher sees some sort of leadership qualities in you. And that for me was just shocking that
Mm-hmm.
people saw leadership qualities in me, and were willing to invest the time and energy to send me to, the Arizona State mock-up
Yeah.
of political process.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's where I think I had the first real encounter with, well, it's important for leadership understanding, right? That the way we see ourselves and the way those around us see us are not the same
Mm,
thing. Um,
yeah.
and so I think of myself, even as I did discern a call into pastoral ministry later on, which, make no mistake, is a leadership call. I went really reluctantly because my own internal sense of self and the external feedback I get from people are they're radically different conversations.
Mm,
And so I live in that kind of tension all the time. And
yeah.
um,
Thanks for naming that.
so yeah, I actually appreciate the opportunity to say that out loud. I don't know that I ever have. And actually nobody's actually asked me to talk about where the leadership idea came from, like, where the first inkling of that kind of started to form and develop. But I can tell you it was Boise State. And
Awesome.
I ran for Senate, got a position that week. I mean, it was just bizarre. It was just a out of body, um, like I jumped multiverse kind of experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, thank you for sharing that really great story.
Yeah.
I got juxtaposition anathema viscerally. I,
You're keeping track.
no, I knew two of the three, but I'm just saying.
Okay. Okay. Fair
I
enough.
jest, but no, I still love that. Here's what I heard from that that really sticks out to me and is kind of an aha moment is what you said when others saw me differently than I saw me. And then you
Mhm.
connected that to that bigger reality that what is my internal sense of self
Mhm.
versus the external? What do other people see? And thanks for being vulnerable. You just, sharing that in the space that you are, and, the experience that you have. Um, but you still noted that that's something you still wrestle with. I just really appreciate you being so honest about that.
Yeah, I mean, I thank you for saying that. I'm not sure how vulnerable it is. I'll tell you the one common experience I have coaching leaders cross industry, nonprofits, church, for profits, is everybody suffers from the imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The only person who doesn't is probably a narcissist or a sociopath.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else suffers from imposter syndrome in some way, shape, or form. The reasons we suffer imposter syndrome are all different. They
Mhm.
have to do with family of origin conversations, shame, sense of self, knowledge of our own incompetence or perceived incompetence, and the tension of being called into spaces where theoretically we're supposed to be competent. How do you hold those things in tension? And right, so but that is a common human leadership dynamic, that sense
Yeah.
of what will happen to me and to this situation if they find out I'm making this up as I go along. Right?
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
this is just a little funny aside. I had a client on Monday and they referred to their struggle with imposter syndrome. So I thought that was kind of funny.
imposter syndrome, I like that.
Yes. And I love taking language and noticing our narrative or what we're saying, and maybe we haven't even thought about it before. But Nathan, I just heard you explaining that reality that if we're honest and we're able to be in that space of self-reflection, processing somewhere where we're having feedback discussions, that we do suffer from, is how you said it, imposter syndrome. I'm wondering have if we could think about how we might just flip that instead of suffers from, since you noted that it happens, it's real, that people at various phases, whatever leadership position they're in, likely will experience this. How could we maybe reframe that so that we own it, claim it, acknowledge it, and then kind of utilize it?
Well, I mean, that is definitely an option. What I see more often than not, which is frustrating from a coaching standpoint with leaders, is that people furiously try to mask it and hide it,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
gets us in all sorts of leadership dilemmas and issues.
Yeah.
Um, I, I don't know why this is. For me, my process was different, and um, so I leaned into the imposter
Mm-hmm.
and I resourced the heck out of myself. I cultivated active mentorship relationships, active coaching relationships. In my calls, I built cabinets. They usually call themselves my kitchen cabinet. I built systems of advisors around me to help me with blind spots, to give me feedback,
Mm-hmm.
um, to empower me to make better decisions. And so that's how I dealt with that internal tension. I built systems of reflection up around myself so that I could better see situations and hopefully head issues off at the past before they became issues, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I think that healthy leaders, I think that was a healthy leadership impulse,
Mm.
and I think that healthy leaders do that. Um, they seek out resources, seek out insight, they seek out spaces for reflection, so they can lead with more integrity, authenticity. Um, um, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
So
Yes.
that's how I flip the script.
Yep.
And I'm going to, like, I want to honor your coaches. How can we flip the language on the one hand, and on the other hand,
Mhm.
for me, the right word is still suffer. Um,
Yeah.
it's
Fair.
because I think this is part of my insight. I have now, 24 years into my formal leadership journey. I have a strong sense of myself, the way people will perceive me, what I can get accomplished, what I can't get accomplished.
Mhm.
And I have that data, that historical data, um, you know, that's held up against my own internal sense of self,
Yeah.
right? And so I've learned to trust that external data more than my internal. So the angst is less now than it was before, but I still have angst.
Fair.
I don't have angst in my preaching anymore, but I still have angst in my leadership. Can I handle this situation? Am I the right person for this situation? How will they respond to me? All of the kinds of questions that I think come with leadership. So anyway, so
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. Okay, well, here in just about a minute, we're going to just take a little uh, mid break. So far, some little nuggets that I've heard and written down for myself is that the idea of the internal sense of self and holding that up with the external, and how in leadership, people that truly want to do a great job are very aware of that. And instead of turning away from it, we embrace it. So in this case, there's some suffering that comes with that. And that could be a great resurrection analogy, right? With the suffering,
Hmm.
often comes the greatest growth.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's where we'll just pause here. So if you're listening and you realize you need to go grab a drink of water, run to the bathroom real quick, go ahead and do that. And we will see you back for the second half of the second half in just about 2.5 minutes. Welcome back to the second half. I'm Jamie Graham Duprey, and today I have my friend Nathan Swenson-Reinhold with me. We have been talking about leadership, and we mentioned that it's such a broad topic, of course, but Nathan shared with us a couple stories that were impactful for him, considering in his formative years. One was wisdom from his grandpa, when his grandpa asked him about being a pastor, or planted that seed. Before Nathan had, and even then Nathan thought, well, that sounds kind of crazy. And then when he got a little bit older, he was chosen to be a delegate and go to Boys State for the state of Arizona for by his peers and his teachers, and so noted that it was impactful when other people saw him differently than he saw himself. So then we went into that piece of maybe other people see something in us, this potential, and how to tap into that. And then the growth that has come from those experiences, while also realizing that you'll still suffer from times where you're curious and wondering, can you do it? And you have that imposter syndrome. Um, so Nathan, now I want to ask you, what does leadership look like for you in the second half?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think, right, we spend the first half trying to figure out, can we do it? And at some point we answer the question, and hopefully the answer is like, yes, yes, I can do this. But I think this goes to David Brooks, The Second Mountain, which is, if you haven't read it, it's related to what you and your husband are doing here. And it's talking about the meaning making that we do in the second half of life. And I'm definitely now kind of in that space. And so I've answered the question, can I do it? Now I want to do it better. Now I don't want to do it. I'm not trying to prove myself anymore. Now I'm looking at the ways that I've generated friction in my leadership over the years, the blind spots that continue to surface, the raw spots, the stuff that relates to um, the inner pieces of shame and brokenness that continue to emerge in leadership, and how those things continue to show up. And um, you know um, so so for example, for me, I make meaning, and I have a sense of myself based upon my leadership utility, how useful I am as a leader. Well, um, what happens when I can't lead anymore, and my identity is fundamentally grounded in that? Then I'm in a so I am really wrestling with, I got accolades for being a human doing, not a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out what it means to lead as a being, not a doing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and what's interesting is I'm making forays and explorations into those spaces, and I'm finding that it's more powerful catalyst for leadership than the doing piece. Um, and I've certainly am a universe away from mastering this, but it's an interesting thing to see and note that that um, that that being is at least as powerful a catalyst as doing. How we show
Oh.
up in spaces, how we manifest presence, are with people, the capacity of our listening, the capacity of our curiosity, the power of our questions, um, the commitment to not being anxious with the learning arcs of organizations or communities as they figure things out. Um, Whereas I used to put my identity in what they did or didn't do, now
Yeah.
it's like, nope, they're on a journey and I'm here to walk with them and they'll figure it out or they won't. But
Yeah.
right, it's a
Yeah.
very different way to show up. And yeah, it's a very
It,
different way to show up.
yeah. To me, when you say that, Nathan, it makes me think about the role that ego plays in our lives, that shadow. Uh, yeah, yeah, sort of that accomplishing versus the doing versus the being, worrying about the output versus who we are, how we're showing up in a, as genuine as possible. Um, so that makes a lot of sense to me. I think about it a couple times, we've shared on this show about times when I was growing up, and I connect to my memoirs and some of the experiences I had as an athlete, as a young athlete, as a basketball player. It was very concrete, which matched the state of mind I was in, my growth,
Mhm.
capacity as a teenager, and that it was very like, here's the goal, win the game, check it off. That's the accolade. But at some point, those measurements aren't what we want to be checking in. Because to your point, we're not going to be able to do that anymore. I can't
Mhm.
run up and down the basketball court anymore.
No.
And that's so I love that you bring that up, that broader, bigger who versus the what, right?
Mhm. Yeah. 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 For me, so far as I'm moving into this second half, it's it's explorations and forays into the quality of my being
Mm,
rather than the quality of my doing. Now, I will say that the bizarre thing about that is there are many dimensions of my doing that have gotten more competent and better, shifting my focus.
yeah.
And I didn't
Same.
expect that. Maybe I
Okay.
should have.
Can you say more about that or give some examples?
Well, I mean, so I am doing an interim call right now. It's very kind of part-time.
Mm-hmm.
But in my own life of managing clients, dozens of them,
Mm-hmm.
it's the it's the it's the getting better at spinning plates and connecting with people and staying on top of projects and situations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that my capacity has tripled over the past 2 years,
Wow.
and the kinds of things that I'm doing now um, would have put me into an absolute panic attack 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not better doing that shifted my capacity. It's a higher quality of center.
I love that. Last week, when we were on a call together, we explored this. For me, it was a brand new awareness, which I'm always looking for that these days. I've really named that in a lot of coaching spaces lately, that when I consider a new awareness, I really just want to grab hold of that and sit with it. And it's usually causes me to have a big energy change. Sometimes it's discomfort,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then it's like, oh wow, if I'm really willing to sit with this. So this one that we were talking about was the phrase, the productive, being in a productive zone of disequilibrium,
Yeah.
and fight, like kind of being okay with that.
Yeah.
Whereas is that kind of connected to what you're
Exactly. Connected to what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's
Mhm,
that you're just stretched outside of your comfort zone.
mhm,
That that the ways that you were doing things are not going to be sufficient for meeting the challenges of this particular day, which means there has to be a shift in your functioning in some way, shape, or form. And you want just a little bit of that for growth. That's the weightlifting in the gym. It's the resistance lifting in the gym. It's getting out and
mhm,
pounding pavement on a run or whatever. It's that stretching self that causes growth. And I think we do that for ourselves as leaders when we put ourselves in positions to expand capacity just a little bit, right?
yeah.
And figure it out. Um, and that is a productive space of disequilibrium. We're a little bit off balance,
Mhm.
and the off balance is actually necessary for. I did judo in high school,
Yeah.
and and I remember my sensei saying one time, Nathan, don't let them convince you that good judo is about balance. It's not. The best
Oh,
judo is always done off balance.
whoa.
So, and I think I have carried that sense, and I think what he means is a perfectly balanced system is actually a static system.
Yeah.
Um, Going biological, if you look at biological systems, balanced systems are never balanced. They're always what
Mm-hmm.
is apparently homeostasis is actually a swinging of the pendulum
Yep.
back and forth. And I think the key insight for me is that dynamic systems, healthy systems, living systems are moving systems, and that
Yeah.
goes for us too. We are moving someplace, and the movement is a byproduct of a dynamic productive disequilibrium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A high
Great.
pressure space pushing into a low pressure space. Yeah.
Great point. And yes, I love that. It reminds me of um, a motivational speaker I heard a couple years ago, and they were standing on their hands and talking about we shouldn't look for balance as a noun period or a destination, but instead the verb. It's something we're always doing. And it was neat to see him physically
Yeah.
moving
Yeah.
back and forth, keeping so that really resonates.
Yeah.
And then this, I'll delve deeper into this just for my own learning. It's just kind of a brand new uh, awareness, like I said, but the bigger space, there was a line plot that had this kind of small, thin a line across that was the productive zone of disequilibrium, but the huge swath underneath it was status quo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
to your point, systems, communities, relationships, families, like often we're just in that status quo, and it's hard work to get up to the next level. But when we're willing to do that, it's just amazing what can happen.
Yeah, there's power in the stretch.
Mm.
Really phenomenal things happen in that stretch. And sometimes those things come unbidden. In my last call, I was talking with her today. My Our executive administrative assistant, she came in and she was high capacity. She's a doula by background, and I'd never had somebody as functional and awesome as her in that kind of role with me.
Yeah.
And I realized she was making me constantly uncomfortable because her capacity was so great. She was offering the opportunity for me to grow my capacity.
Mm.
Um, and I wish I'd actually leaned into her a little bit more than I did. So we actually had a fantastic conversation today, and I made that confession and tried to celebrate her really big. But I think
Awesome.
sometimes the stretch comes unbidden. We're given a new person in our lives or a relationship, and they're doing things that are fantastic, and it upsets our equilibrium.
Hmm.
And we got to figure out: are we going to sit in resistance, or are we going to embrace the opportunity? The horse is running, grab a hold of it, jump on its back, and run it. Run it till
Yep.
it stops. And so yeah, I think that's part of the art of life, and that's working with the gifts that are being given to us all the time rather than against them.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That word capacity. I think that's what I'm going to take away today, the stretch for leaders. If we're thinking about leadership and we want to think of how we can grow in our own spaces, our own
Mhm.
spheres of influence, however big or, whatever that looks like for us, that's okay. That's our reality. Embrace it. So my encouragement as we are about to say goodbye today is to think about that. Where are you in your life? What's your capacity? And how might you seek out intentional ways to grow that? Understanding that there's going to be a little suffering in that, but
Mhm.
that actually can bring amazing resurrection and growth if you're willing to do the work. Well, Nathan, thank you so much for showing up here today. And for everyone here who's listening, again, you can join me the second and fourth Wednesday of the month on TTN, and we will see you next time on the second half.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the second half with me, Coach Duprey. Tune in on the second and every month at 8 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio, where you will be encouraged to make connections in your life that will dare you to explore powerful growth personally, vocationally, and spiritually. For more information about me, my courses, my coaching, and my books, and how I can support you on your journey, find me on my website, coachdupre.com. See you next time.
Views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the station, its management, or advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.